95.
Adio. All right, 3, 2, 1.
Bloody hell, chum.
Hey. This is the Film File, episode 95. Stand by for action.
5,
4,
4,
3,
3,
2,
2, 1.
dun.
Film file is go. Dun, dun,
You just leave
dun,
when you do the
dun,
edit, just
dun,
leave the Film File is
dun,
go.
dun, 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 dun.
Just
That's,
leave that in.
that's happening.
That's great. Yeah, leave it in. Andy, how have you been? It's we're a little late recording this than we usually do because, well, I had a birthday. But enough about me. On to you.
How dare you have a birthday, sir? Yes,
I
we
know.
normally record on the Sundays and then do some touch-ups on the Tuesday before I do my final edit of it. But we're actually recording it all on the Tuesday now, which leaves me a bit pressed for time for getting the edit out. So tomorrow night's going to be spent sat in front of the computer, slaving away, trimming all the ums and the erms and the diversions that we have. Because people who've been paying attention to the YouTube channel will have noticed that I've started uploading some more videos of the deep dives.
Yes, I was going to mention that.
They're the unedited ones. So you get some of the diversions and some of the times that Lee strays off topic, including when I was rewatching them, there was the moment. It's usually the moments in the middle of the show where we talk about how you can get in touch with us, etc. That's when you go off on tangents. And there's the one when you went off on a tangent about how much you hate the Babadook. And it had
I really hate the Babadook.
And I'm so glad that we had that on video because it was fantastic how you just pause for about 5 seconds and go, oh, I hate that film. And then start going into why you hate the film. And
I really do just like the Babadook. It's not that it's not that it's a bad movie. It's the kid.
It's the kid.
It's the kid I absolutely detest. I would have fed him to the Babadook by that. And it's also that thing that I've talked about this many times on the show. It's when certain directors don't make horror films, they make psychological thrillers. No, it's a horror film. Just be proud of the fact you've made a horror film. Don't try
getting a strange sense of deja vu right now.
Yeah. Shall we just move on? You've just opened an old Babadook wound.
Well, I was properly warped out on Halloween. Sat here in front of the computer, Halloween evening, tapping away on me movie talk on Sunday like I normally do. If you've not checked out Movie Talk on Sunday, hashtag
highly
Entos on Twitter, get searching for it, look at all the old questions, see what kind of thing we discuss. But it was dark because the nights are drawing in, and it was Halloween. And I'm sat, and you've seen where my computer is, but the people at home probably don't. But my computer is literally next to my bay doors at my kitchen. So I've got glass doors in front of me, one of them with a net half over it, one of them completely open. And as I'm sat here, something tapped against the window and it looked like a red light had hit it as well. I was like, what on earth was that? And then it taps again and it's behind the net curtain, so I can't quite see it. So I'm like, what's going on? And I've got all my lights off because I tend to sit in my kitchen in the dark.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it goes in front of the door that hasn't got a curtain in front of it. And it's a solitary red balloon drifts into view, drops down to the floor.
Come on.
And then the wind snags it and it drifts off into the garden and in the darkness of the garden. And I was like, what on earth? So I got up, opened the door to look for it in the garden. It's gone. That was it. Door closed, locked, net curtain over. I was like, I'm not going anywhere out there. If there's a clown waiting for me, I'm not doing it.
So at which point then, Andy, did you poop yourself?
All the way through it. It was a long, extended poop. I mean, I've spoken to you about my fear of clowns. I'm one of these.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's strange that most people, these figures that are supposed to bring joy and laughter, we actually hate.
They creep me out immensely. So, even though it wasn't an over-the-top horror, I found I was scared for most of the film because it's a clown. And so the very thought of some clown in my garden, it absolutely melted my brain. That was it. I was done for the night.
Still with us, still enjoying the show. This is the part of the program where we say, I can't speak. Still with us, still enjoying the show. Well, this is the part of the show where we recommend that you subscribe to the Film File. Head over to your favorite podcast platform, find the Film File, hit the subscribe button, and remember to leave us a like and a positive review. You could leave us a negative one, but please, There's nothing to be negative about. We ain't those guys. If you enjoy the show as much as we enjoy making it, then tell your friends and they can tell their friends ad infinitum. If you want to know more about the Film File, you can do so by simply
heading over to Twitter and follow us at FilmFile UK. Head over to Instagram, FilmFile UK. Go over to YouTube and search for FilmFile and you'll find the YouTube channel there. You can email us thoughts, suggestions, reviews, films that you think that we need to see as a deep dive. We're open to anything. Literally, I'm open to anything.
be careful how you be careful what you be careful what you wish for included. There, Andy. Be careful.
That email address is podcast@filmfile.uk. So the idea behind this is that you've heard us lavish praise over films that we love and recommend you to go and see. But we've all got those films that we've seen once and didn't quite like. But as I keep saying, you need to revisit films from time to time and see whether they still are bad or whether you just missed something. So what we've decided is that every now and then we're going to pick something that stands out as something that neither of us really liked, but we go to revisit it to see if we can find something that we actually do like from within it, as well as like pointing out what doesn't work in it. If we can find something good, we will praise it. But this is an interesting experiment, so bear with us as we dig through. I've even got notes on the sequel, so I really went deep into this one.
You were a braver man than I. So we're kicking off with the 2007 film Ghost Rider, brought to you by Columbia, starring Nicolas Cage as... It was Johnny Blaze, wasn't it? Not the other one.
Johnny Blaze.
As Johnny Blaze. Blaze? As Johnny Blaze. Brought to you, written and directed by Mark Steven Johnson, known for helming 2003's Daredevil. God, I can't speak, sorry. Known for helming 2003's Daredevil. So, I watched this a couple of weeks back with the kid. The kid really wanted to see it. He didn't know anything about Ghost Rider. He's not familiar with the character. So I gave it a go, and I sat with him for the majority of it. For him, as an 8-year-old, this was the best film ever. I kid you not. He raved. He loved it. He thought it was funny. He thought it was a little bit scary. He thought it was, he had wonderful special effects and absolutely had a blast with it. I'd not seen it since I saw it upon it. I'd not seen it since its initial release back in 2007. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think it's improved that much. Unlike Mark Steven Johnson's Daredevil, which I now have quite a lot of love for. There's a lot of problems with it, don't get me wrong, but it's aged really well in most areas to do with story, and I still think that the look of Daredevil was absolutely spot on, and I thought Ben Affleck did a great job playing Matt Murdock. Still has faults, but I like it an awful lot. This, upon second viewing, still didn't land for me. What I did think was good, I thought the characterization of Ghost Rider was spot on. I thought the look was absolutely they captured the look, and I thought the effects have held up pretty well. The main problem I have with this is Nicolas Cage, because he's not playing a character. He's playing Nicolas Cage, playing a character. Now, I know he was a big fan. I know he's a big comic book fan. And we know in an alternate universe he was Superman. But apparently he was a big fan of Ghost Rider and wanted to do it. It just doesn't land. The plot is all over the place. It goes for silly, campy humor instead of proper drama. You're not watching people, you're watching caricatures all the way through. But what I did like is I liked the look of Ghost Rider a lot.
Yeah, Cage was cast because he actively pursued this part. He loves the character so much, he even has a tattoo of Ghost Rider, which he had to have covered up for the filming of the film. Initially, the studio was looking around names like Johnny Depp or Eric Bana to play the lead role. But Cage actively pursued it, and as a result, increased the budget significantly. It was originally planned for a 65 million budget. It ended up coming in at 110 million because Cage, first of all, took a better paycheck than those two would have done. And secondly, he insisted that the special effects live up to the character. He was insistent that the Ghost Rider itself had to look photo real. Now, I rewatched this only a couple of days ago. And you know what? I found myself kind of enjoying it.
Right.
It's okay. It's not a stinker that most people think it is.
No, absolutely not a stinker.
The story's
I'll
generic.
totally agree.
The story's generic. The dialogue is dreadful at times. And Wes Bentley is absolutely dreadful as Blackheart. He offers absolutely little to no menace. But the film kind of knows how preposterous the whole idea was. And so it's got its tongue firmly stuck in its cheek for most of it. Even if someone clearly forgot to tell Peter Fonda, who adds no showmanship to the part of Mephistopheles, he just comes in and blandly says his lines and walks off. It's like, oh, you could have really chewed some scenery here, mate. What are you doing? You missed this opportunity. But what I found, I mean, you said that it's Nicolas Cage playing Nicolas Cage. I felt that this was the most reined in that I've seen Nicolas Cage in quite a while. He wasn't his overly eccentric, wacky mannerisms throughout it. And maybe that comes because he's got a love of the character himself that he didn't want to make it ridiculous. He wanted it to be a bit more grounded. Yes, there's a couple of crazy Cage moments, but they fit the moment of which is taking place, like when the transformation's starting to take place on him. And it's clear that his love for the character affected his approach to the material. I will say, I mean, I'll agree with you that the CGI stands up pretty well.
Yeah, it captures Ghost Rider, and Ghost Rider came back for a sequel, which we'll talk about in a moment, but also came back for episodes of Agents of Shield, and where they really perfected the Ghost Rider look. But you know what? I cannot argue that with the look of the character was absolutely comic real. It was absolutely spot on, and I'm kind of pleased because the Ghost Rider as a character has had many alter egos, and I like the fact they stuck around with the. Just Johnny Cage. With Johnny Cage.
Not Johnny Cage. Johnny Blaze.
Johnny Blaze, sorry, yeah, Johnny Cage. With Johnny Blaze as opposed to some of the other variations on the character. Now, before Mark Steven Johnson was involved, David S. Goyer was involved, Jonathan Hensley. It looked like at one point that Blade director Stephen Norrington was going to shoot the film. Whatever happened to him? To be honest, but whatever happened to Mark Steven Johnson either? I don't know if the Kiss of Death was this film, but both have, as far as careers, have basically traded
right
theirs
out the
in.
industry.
But it's likable. I think I enjoyed it more the first time round than the second time round, but I do think it's kind of hung on, and it's okay. It does have a likability to it. I agree with you. I think the casting of the villains, other than the sort of the supporting villains, were a bit bland, and a lot more could have been done with them. But they got the origin story right, and they've got the character right, definitely of Ghost Rider.
Cage had his own skull scanned to form the CGI version of the Ghost Rider skull, which is why the effects work so well with the transformation, because that skull matches his head shape perfectly. The budget, like I said, increased significantly as a result. Was it money well spent? I think the fact that you're talking about CGI special effects from 15 years ago that hold up today, that's a rarity. So yes, they were well spent. It's Sam Elliott crops up in there playing the caretaker, or basically playing the same character he plays in every film, to be honest. He could have just as easily been sat at a bar talking to a slacker about bowling and life in this film as he was talking to Nicolas Cage about the afterlife and the devil. But this revisit wasn't as painful as I expected it to be. It's not a good film, and yes, it's a mess, and it spends far too long on the pre-Rider setup. There's almost 50 minutes of film that pass before he actually becomes the Rider.
Yeah, that was clumsy for me. That's one of those things that I was waiting around for Ghost Rider because hey, he's the title of the film. But you're right, the Evel Knievel aspect went on for far too long. Before we even got an inkling of who he was going to transform into.
Yeah, and Rebel Wilson pops up at one point in a very early
that's
role.
surprise. You see, I've always got this issue with films that I know. You're not always going to shoot in New York, and a lot of times you take that production elsewhere. But there's something about films that are shot in Australia for me when they're trying to pass as the States that don't ever land true. I don't know what it
Yeah,
is, but they just don't feel like the States. I think there's, you can get away with Manchester for New York, but
yeah,
there's something about Australia. It doesn't sit with me from a cinematography point of view. I don't know whether it's the lighting. I don't know whether it's the kind of slightly hammy supporting actors trying to do US accents. But that's always an issue for me. I had the same issue with The Matrix, if I'm perfectly honest.
yeah. The biggest problem that this film has is it suffers from origin tailitis. It's something that most other origin tales suffer from, that it just feels a bit generic and weak overall. And maybe they could get it right in a second film, like so many origin superhero stories have done. The second film has built on what was already placed and been so much better. So
So
the
you mean
foundation
something
was
that
laid.
wasn't just funny, it didn't go for cheap laughs, but went for horror instead?
Yeah, like they planned with Spirit of Vengeance, the sequel.
I lasted 10 minutes of Spirit of Vengeance before I gave up. The kid enjoyed it, so, it does have somewhat of a happy ending. I lasted 10 minutes of it. And the only thing that they got right, again, was the Ghost Rider look.
But even that, I didn't appreciate the Ghost Rider look this time because they went for like it's bubbling tar jacket and like burnt skull rather than the clean skull that we'd had in the first one. It looked sketchy and it doesn't quite stand up the test of time as much as that first one did. Spirit of Vengeance came from Mark Neverdeen and Brian Taylor, who had given the world Crank, Crank 2, and Gamer. And much like the Punisher duo of films, this second outing was pitched as tapping into the darker aspects and aiming to be less jokey than the first one. But what we got was a darkened, blackened Ghost Rider design. We got a film directed by two guys with serious ADD. Their fast cuts and constant movement and speed and slow changes and fast pans might have worked in Crank, a film which is kind of served well by the erratic handling, but here it just distracted and annoys me. You watched 10 minutes and gave up. I
Yeah.
took 3 attempts on this film. I had to stop it after 20 minutes because I was getting so frustrated with the camera work in it. And then I'd start it again the next day from where it left off. And then I'd get another 20 minutes. I was like, oh, no. It 3 times. It took me 3 days in total to work through this film. Within a few scenes, their style makes the film almost unwatchable. Idris Elba is on board for this one and fails to make any kind of lasting impression. To be honest, I'd completely forgotten that Idris Elba was in this until I rewatched it. That's how much of an impression he had on me when I first saw it at the cinema. The budget was cheaper, the effects were weaker, Cage ramped up his Cage-like manner, and somewhere along the way, someone decided to make it trashy. Hello, Neville Dean and Taylor. It diminished the whole affair and made for a dreadful take on the character. In addition, you can see the moments on screen that the dreadful trend at the time for 3D in everything were forced in. And there's things that snap out the screen, and then there's like everything goes to black around them, and the skull like judders in front of you. It's if you watch the first Ghost Rider and like me, you go, you know what, it's not too bad. Let's give the second one a shot. Stop yourself right there, slap yourself across the face a few times, and back away. Watch the version of Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. instead. Season 4 or 5, I believe
Yeah,
it
I think
was.
so. Yeah, it was towards the not far off the end of the end of the run.
But don't watch Neverdeen and Taylor's absolute abhorrent mess of a film because I've suffered it. You don't need to.
You
The character's
know,
now
it's.
back. The
I was going
character's
to
now back with Marvel Studios. So fingers crossed we will get a proper introduction to the MCU at some point.
because a film's not going to go well when it's set in Eastern Europe because there's no reason at all for Johnny Blaze and that character to be in Eastern Europe, and that's when the warning signs went off within the first 5 minutes of it because it lacks gravitas. But it didn't have a bad cast. It had Kieran Hines, as you said, Idris
Yep.
Elba, and Christopher Lambert. Every single actor, absolutely wasted in something that I couldn't stand to be around. The stench I had to shower off. It was that bad. And
Well,
apparently even so for Cage, because when asked would he come back for a third, he
yeah.
declined. Not with
And
me in
considering
it.
how much he loves the character,
Yeah.
for him to back away and say, that's it, I'm done. spoke volumes.